Hey, I'm Marcus.
And I'm Kenzie. We have a lot of news for you this week.
So let's get right into the noise.
We had another successful musical this past weekend.
Thank you to all of those who put in the time and effort to make this musical possible, including, but not limited to, our talented actors and actresses, the tech crew led by Clint Haley, set design led by Chrissy and Brian Gallagher, and obviously the wonderful director, Mrs. Stelton.
We can't wait for further productions. Speaking of the future, for any current sophomores and juniors interested in welcoming the new freshman class to the high school, you should apply for Link Crew.
Applications are available in the College and Career Center for those who are interested in helping our 8th graders transition to high school.
There's one more opportunity to keep in mind. The Big Lake High School is offering the opportunity for Spectrum boys interested in tennis to play on their team this spring.
Spectrum students will be responsible to provide their own transportation to practices and matches and to pay all fees to Big Lake High School. Let either Mr. Peterson or Mrs. Bondi in the office know right away today if this may interest you.
Keeping the theme of sports, let's volley it over to Braden with more sports-related content.
Welcome back, Spectrum. Sports this week, we have a lot brewing for you. First, congrats to the boys basketball team for advancing into the semifinals of the section tournament, but sadly, they could not overcome a hard-fought Melrose on Wednesday, and their season has officially ended. Swimming and diving is over, wrestling is over, hockey is over, girls basketball is over, but spring sports has already started, and track has their first indoor meet on Friday. Thank you all seniors, and good luck this upcoming sports season. Well, Spectrum, that will be all. I'm Braden, and now over to commercial.
A listening locker has been placed in the senior hallway as a place for students to confidentially report student and school safety concerns if that student is not comfortable reporting it directly to an adult.
It is not a place to report complaints, but rather it is a place to report specific school and student safety issues.
If it is an issue that needs to be addressed right away, contact a trusted adult.
With the recent snowstorm spikes in the state of Minnesota, it's made it quite difficult for teachers to stick to their syllabuses and assignment deadlines. It has even made Spectrum Community wonder what kind of weather is extreme enough to close down the school. Here's Carter and Braden with the noise.
Winter is synonymous with snow, freezing temperatures, and bad roads. However, this year's winter has proven to be one of the worst, with record-breaking snowfalls and extremely cold temperatures reaching almost negative 30 degrees. Because of this brutal weather, Spectrum has had 6 snow days this school year. Deciding to close the school is a tough decision to make, and Mr. DeBruin, Spectrum's executive director, is the person who has the responsibility of deciding whether or not the conditions are safe enough for students to attend school.
But our number one factor is making sure that our students are safe.
Not only is safety a factor in determining whether or not the school should open or close its doors, but there are many other factors to take into account. For instance, the school buses.
Some of our drivers actually, after they drop off here, they go and pick up at another school. And so if that school's not closing, then we really can't.
Not only do snow days affect the students at Spectrum, they also affect the teachers.
I created a schedule, and having a lot of days off has really caused me to have to try to switch things up, which can be kind of hard to do sometimes.
It can be especially difficult for Mrs. Hewitt as she teaches a handful of cash classes.
We have a syllabus that I have to get approved from the college at the beginning of the year, and they tell me what subjects I'm supposed to include.
Not to mention her trip from her home in the Twin Cities to the school every day.
It really can make it difficult to commute. My typical commute is between 35 and 45 minutes. And there were a couple days where it took me an hour and a half to get here, just to get here, plus to get home. So it's quite a strain.
With all these recent snowstorms, parents should make sure to check for updates of school closings.
Families can go on to the TV stations and actually get those alerts from the TV stations too.
In total, students should be wary of the weather conditions and remember to stay safe and keep warm. This has been Braden and Carter with Noise News.
I didn't know that finding out if school is closed was that easy.
Yeah, with just a few clicks, you can be caught up on what's going on with the weather and the effects it has on our school.
Continuing with the news, Spectrum has been graced with a brand new art teacher this semester, Miss Caldwell. Let's go into a profile story on her with Paul and Tim.
Art It's something a lot of us can do, and something few of us can do exceptionally. Teaching art is a different field, however, and while you can be amazing at something, teaching that thing requires an additional set of skills and a whole lot of passion, which is something Miss Caldwell, the new Spectrum art teacher, has had for a while.
I had a lot of great art teachers, from even in elementary to middle school to high school. My mom was also an art teacher, so I always did art at home. I believe that art is all around us. I really have a passion for art. I love to do it. I love to talk about it. I love to teach.
She took that same passion for art with her to college.
I studied at Bethel University, K through 12. I had lots of high school and elementary and even middle school experiences in the classroom, which I loved, so it gave me an idea of what it was really like to be a teacher.
Miss Caldwell's students definitely enjoy her teaching.
She really tries to interact with the students and get them involved.
Her personal works show just how sharp her creative edge is.
I love to paint. I love watercolor paintings. I'm really into making these really teeny tiny gouache paintings. They're about like 3 inches by 3 inches. They're super tiny, but they're really detailed. If acrylic and watercolor paint had a baby, it would be gouache paint. I made these giant 6-foot paintings, and I made them in the rain. So how it started was I had a teacher who he required that we make a drawing without actually drying anything, which sounds really complicated, and it is. I decided to make a drawing with droplets as they fell from trees. So what I would do is I would, with the help of some friends, take these giant pieces of paper out and hold them under the trees. And as the water was pooling under the branches, I would put some ink in there, and then that's what would fall into the page. They're just like the feeling of being out in a rainstorm.
With her high enthusiasm and passion for art, we are happy to have Miss Caldwell with us here at Spectrum. This has been Tim and Paul for Noise News, signing off.
Her family was so invested in art. That's so cool.
I know. I'm happy to see yet another teacher here who loves what they do. Now our next story might come as quite a shock, Spectrum.
As many of you may know, the National Honor Society went on a field trip to participate in the Polar Plunge, an event created to support Minnesota's Special Olympics. While it's fun to see everyone jump into a freezing cold lake in the middle of winter, it's also important to know why they're doing it. Let's submerge ourselves into the details. Imagine jumping into the freezing cold waters of Lake Calhoun in the middle of winter. That is exactly what the students of NHS and their leader, Mr. Hyde, do every year.
I've gone to the Polar Plunge for 3 years, but today was the first time I jumped.
Mr. Hyde said, quote, "The Polar Plunge is run by the Minneapolis Police. It's for Minnesota Special Olympics. Individuals can do different activities and levels depending on how much money is put in." End quote. So why would anyone ever want to jump in a freezing cold lake? Quote, "You raise money. You have to raise $75 to be able to plunge. For NHS, we wanted to do something to be a part of a larger community, more than Spectrum, but also more than local." End quote. For the past 3 years, students in NHS have gone out and raised money so that they can be a part of the fun event.
I've probably raised a little over $100, but the NHS group as a whole has raised well over $3,000.
Quote, "This will be our 3rd year doing the plunge. The first year, I think we raised around $600, and then last year we raised $1,900, and our goal for this year is to get $1,500, end quote. So what exactly sparked the interest to start participating in the plunge? Quote, "That's the part where we wanted to be a part of something outside of Spectrum and outside of the local area of Spectrum / Elk River Northwest community," end quote. But what do the students think of the plunge?
My favorite part about participating in the plunge for last year, it has to be jumping itself. That was very exciting, and it was a thrill-seeking experience for me.
My favorite part has to be just hanging out with the NHS members because they are just such a great group of people, and I also like that I'm able to support such a great cause.
This has been Sam Lay and Marcus Grund from Noise News. Well, Spectrum, that's all the news we have for you today. This has been Marcus Grunt.
And Kenzie Alders, keeping you
In on the noise. Yeah, that was really good.
Hey, you.
No,
Hey, you.
down.
Stop it.
Get that thing out of my face! Keep that thing in the air! I don't know what Marcus said.
Something about balls.
Peanut butter.
Okay, redo it.
Hey, Kenzie, your hair's getting a little wacky in the back and it's casting some shadows.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm getting fired tonight.
Paul!